Hello and welcome to the Elevate Data Show, number 15. I was trying to say it different this time.
And also, you're holding up 6 fingers.
Well,
That's not
it's a
what?
5. It's a 1 and a 5.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Welcome, everybody. We're here to explore current topics in data visualization and share creative inspiration and the tools and techniques that we're experimenting with as practicing information designers. Today, we are talking about a day in the life of a Dataviz designer. So what in the world do we do all day? And we're going to get really specific, what we're working
Good
on,
question.
tools we use, and we'll try to go hour by hour. We'll kind of group the day by morning, mid-morning, lunch, afternoon, and then late in the wee hours for Gabby we'll cover. And it'll be really interesting because Will and I are both full-time salaried, plus we do freelance, and Duncan is, would you say part-time salaried plus freelance?
I am very, I'm like 20% time.
Okay.
Kind of. I mean, I'm not really even salary. I'm freelance. Let's just call it that. That's easiest.
And Gabby's all freelance. So it'll be really interesting to hear how our days are structured. I'm Allie Torben, and we have Duncan Gear, Gabrielle Marit, and Will Chase with us today. And before we jump in, this show is supported by the members of the Elevate Dataviz learning community who get the opportunity to watch live and ask questions. And if you would like to do that and you want to level up your Dataviz skills in a really supportive and fun community, check out elevatedataviz.com.
It's so nice.
It's so nice. This should be our tagline.
Join us.
It's so nice.
So nice. Okay, day in the life. Let's start with the morning. Duncan, how do you start your day, either typically and or like specifically, if you want to pick yesterday or something and just say what you did when you woke up?
I made a few notes for what I did yesterday, but I would say, so I'm kind of a morning person, and I tend to wake up at like 6:30ish, something like that, and have a fairly tight routine in the mornings. I tend to get up, eat some breakfast, take dog out for a walk, and walk my partner to the station so that she can get her train to work. And then I come back and I've got about an hour before I sort of start things from there. And usually what I will do is maybe a bit of exercise, maybe a bit of like catching up on newsletters, emails, just like anything that is kind of outstanding. But what I definitely try and do is I try and get a little bit of time focused on things that I want to do like first thing before I kind of start kick in with like things that other people want me to do. And that kind of is really important because it puts me in a good frame of mind for actually getting started in the day, I think.
So healthy.
Isn't that something Oliver Berkman said in that workshop we were in? He was like, you don't make time, you claim time.
Yeah.
So if you want to do something, you got to claim the time.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I do in that hour between like 8 and 9 a.m. And then I would say around 9 a.m. is kind of when I say, that's when I open up my to-do list and I'm like, right, what is actually on the agenda for today? I think it's probably worth saying that I have this like quite strong to-do list system, because otherwise I don't know how anyone gets anything done without a to-do list system. I certainly didn't before I made my own. And I use an app called Things, which is really good, but that's not really what's important. What's important is that I also have like this physical thing. Here it is. This is my logbook. And every day I write down, just like roughly what I did the previous day in that logbook. And that has like a couple of, I think I've talked about a little bit about it before on this show, but the big benefit that has is it says to me, like right at the start of the morning, hey, you did quite a lot of stuff yesterday. You're on a roll, sort of thing. It's motivating, and also it creates a kind of physical artifact of all this stuff that I'm doing. Otherwise, it just kind of like floats away into the ether, and I forget about it. So then, in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, I'll be able to look back and I'll be like, what did I do on the 20th of July, 2023? And I'll be able to say, I did the Elevate Dataviz show, and it was the best one we've recorded yet.
Is that it? Is that your morning?
Yeah, that was it. That was
Oh.
my big finish from my.
Wait. That's morning up
And then there
to
was like
12?
silence.
Like lunch?
No. That was like
Oh, okay,
morning
that's like-
morning routine, like
Morning,
before I
okay.
start work.
Okay.
Okay.
Basically.
Not late morning.
We
Okay,
didn't
so we're doing
define
early.
these like.
You're right.
groups
I
in
should have been more
advance.
specific. You're right. Oh, I should interject. The inspiration for this show was an article that Andy Kirk posted recently on his blog. I just dropped the link in the chat. But he did a day in the life blog post that we really liked because since we're all Dataviz freelancers, it's cool to see how someone structures their day as well. So we highly recommend checking out his article and just seeing, hour by hour what he's doing. So super interesting. Thanks, Duncan. All right, Gabby, what do you do in your morning? Not late morning, just morning.
Just morning. Okay. I want to make a statement that my life has been completely transformed since New York. It was very different. I was an early riser, early morning person, and then New York happened, and I don't know what happened. So I get up a bit later now, like around 8. Sometimes only because the dog gotta go. But I used to be like a 5 a.m. person. I'm no longer a 5 a.m. person.
That's interesting. I wonder, is that like an East Coast, West Coast culture, you think?
Yeah, I think more than culture, I think I had the requirement of I would start meetings, 9 a.m. meetings, and the East Coast would be 6 a.m. in LA.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I would get up at 5. Go ahead.
Got it.
Is it just that you never got used to the jet lag of moving across the country? Because like 5 to 9, isn't that pretty much exactly the same time?
I think maybe. I think part of it is the meeting was the requirement. I had to be up at meeting would start at 9 or 9:30, which was 6:30 in LA time. So and that was mandatory because if for British time and I have a lot of European clients, like that was already late in the day. So that was kind of a requirement. And to be fair, in my life I was like that. I just don't know what happened. It just changed. I could do it later. So yeah, dog. I'm like Duncan. Dog comes first. I gotta take care of the dog. And then I have same like Duncan, I have quite a bit of a ritual. So I'm very unhealthy, not like Duncan. And I do look at all my emails and stuff. Like I have this like, do I have a fire to put off before even starting my day? So I just double check quickly that because I have those time zone differences with European clients, and sometimes they need me to answer something to be able to move forward in the day because it's already like midday for them. I tend to do a really quick double check on the European client just to check that there's no like big fire alarm fake that I need to put down or something, a link that's not working or something like that. So I do check my phone. Guilty. And then I have like a super strict ritual where I do the same breakfast every day. Like it's the same thing, and usually my husband makes me coffee, which is really nice. He makes really great lattes. And I start my day at 9. I want to be at my desk. I do that thing too. I know some freelancers don't get dressed. I have this rule of like I have to be dressed. There's no pajama work. Like that is not a thing. And it's part of like the ritual of like getting cleaned up, putting makeup if I feel like it, like putting jewelry. It's like I'm at work, even though my office is in my bedroom, which you can't see, but my bed is right next to me on my left. So I have this rule to clarify that now I'm at work. So I get ready and then I start my day before. So usually people are starting to text me around 9:30, email me. So I usually kind of go through all my email and answer all my emails for the day first. But I won't go any further because that's just early morning, and then we'll get into the workstation.
Don't want to overstep. All right, let's see. Morning for me. So my husband gets up early, so he gets up at 5 so he can go to the gym and stuff. So that just kind of naturally wakes me up. And then I don't have a set time that I usually wake up. I will wake up with him if I do have like a lot of stuff to do that day so I can get to start working. At the latest, I'll wake up at 7 because I want at least a little bit of time before my kids wake up at 7:30. So just specifically yesterday, I woke up at 5:30 and I usually work out a little bit. I do some very light weights. Don't get impressed. I have little 8-pounders.
We all impressed.
start moving a little bit, and then I get dressed too, like with Gabby. Like I just always need to be dressed because otherwise I just don't feel good when I'm kind of like still in my PJs and stuff. So get dressed, and then I start working. So yesterday I started working at 6, and I like it because it's nice and quiet. And I can usually do my to-do list and push a lot of emails out of my queue, maybe do some like little tweaks that people asked me to do overnight, just push it out of my queue. I'm just trying to get things prepped so that I can actually sit down and do like some creative work or design work later. So kind of like Gabby, like my schedule really shifted lately because my kids stopped school. They're in summer now. So like my summers are very much different from my, from when school is in session. I have more of like a 9 to 4 kind of schedule, but during the summer, I'm just like trying to grab bits of time to work in between, like shuttling my kids around to camp and all that stuff. So specifically yesterday, I started at 6 to work because I had a training. I work at data literacy training company, and we had a training at 10:30, and I was trying to finish this data story that I needed to create. And I was working in, I did the data story in Tableau, and then I was taking the images from Tableau and putting it into Google Slides so I could integrate it into the training slides. So it's like, hey, here's how you make a data story, and then here's an example of a data story. So I was going back and forth doing that. And then we also use Slido, is a really cool Slido. It's a really cool, it integrates, it's an extension in Google Slides, but I think it works with other things too. And you can integrate polls and quizzes and word clouds and, like all that fun interaction stuff directly in Google Slides. So it's really fun. So I had to create some of those so that I could ask people questions and get them involved in the data story training process. So I was like frantically doing that from like 6 to 7:30. And then 7:30, my kids wake up, and then we always play Wordle in the morning together. We're like a little team, the three of us, trying to beat my husband at Wordle. And then they have breakfast, and then I usually go back and work a little bit more. And if I don't really have a strong deadline for something, I'm just, again, trying to push out emails until I take them to, like, in school, they start at 9. This week they have camp that starts at 9. So I took them off to camp, and then I came home to work some more. So I guess that's kind of my morning. So I'll pause there.
Is the understanding that if you have a dog or children, you have to start early? I feel like that's kind of where it's landing.
You have someone to you have something to take care of. It's like your schedule just revolves around it, right? What about you, Will? You have a dog.
I was going to say, I have a dog, and I am proof that you don't have to start early.
Wait. Your dog doesn't wake you up to go out or like have
the dog.
food or...
Well, actually, the cat wakes me up. The dog would stay asleep. The dog is very polite. Once she's up and she knows that I'm up, then she will come and, and make noise. But the cat is the one that will wake me up like before I want to be awake. Early, what is early? 8 a.m. for me is early. For most people, that's late. So let's see. Okay, so my morning routine right now. So I should mention my routine is different right now because normally my husband is here. So we're sharing things. Right now he's not, he's in Pakistan. So I'm like holding down the household. So mainly that comes out in like animal duty because the dog is very high maintenance. So I wake up, go feed the animals. Every morning I do this, go feed the animals, make breakfast. I have my little coffee thing and whatever I'm having for breakfast. And then I unhealthily sit and eat breakfast while I watch some kind of TV or videos or something. And depending on how busy I am and how slow I have been in that morning, I will do different things. So if I'm up early, I will sit on the couch and do nothing and watch TV while I have breakfast. If it was like yesterday and I'm running late, then I will go sit in front of the computer and start answering Slack messages while I eat breakfast. So that's what I did. And then I do whatever I need to do, brush my teeth, shower, whatever, and then take the dog for a walk, which takes 30 minutes to an hour. And usually when I'm walking, I will call my husband and we'll talk on the phone while I walk the dog. So that is the morning routine. And then I come back and around, it could be any time between like 9:30 to 11, depending how good I'm doing that morning. Then I will sit down to start working like properly. Usually I've finished like emails and Slack messages, earlier by that point, or I do them on my phone while I'm that's when I sit down to like actually get to work.
Yeah, it seems like everybody needs that time to clear the queue of emails and messages and stuff so you can actually focus. I have, a couple times I'd really tried to do this where I would just wake up and not look at anything until everything was the morning routine stuff was done. And then even like I had a creative task I wanted to work on before I even looked at anything. And I set myself up so I wouldn't have to look at a computer. And it was really nice. But I did it for 2 days. And I was like, no, I just need to look at my email.
Yeah.
Is that like an anxiety thing? I mean, I think Duncan is probably the most healthy.
Yeah.
Am I? Or do I
yeah.
just project an aura
Dude,
of health?
you
Because
put your
I'm
phone away at night. You must be the only person who does that.
I mean, if I were healthy, like according to science, what I should be doing right now, and it is summer, so the weather's nice. Like what you should do is I should like get up and make my breakfast and then go sit out on the porch and let the sun hit me in the face
vitamin
while I do my breakfast and do nothing with my phone
Meditate,
or work.
yoga.
Exactly. I should do all of that. But right now I'm basically in like survival mode. So I'm like, all right, whatever works. And I'm like, right now is all about like doubling up on everything. So it's like, while I'm eating breakfast, I'm answering Slack messages and emails. While I'm walking the dog, I'm again on Slack. A lot of times if I have a morning meeting, I'll like Zoom into the meeting while I'm walking the dog. Talk to people on the phone. Like it's all about multitasking right now.
Yeah, I think it's really important to say that, what we're presenting here is an average work day or something, but there are absolutely times when you need to be in survival mode and, things get dropped and, that happens several times a year. And don't kind of
several times a month for a week,
several times a day for you.
Half the week of survival.
But yeah, so I mean, don't get fooled just because we're presenting these like idyllic pictures of our lives, or not so idyllic in Gabby's case.
Yeah,
but it's always like that. It's not.
Yeah, especially with the freelance work, right? Because it goes up and down often. Yeah. And if you're doing full-time work plus freelance, it does kind of like the highs and the lows feel a little bit higher. I don't know.
Higher and lower.
Because working at data literacy now, like, I have that work kind of ebbs and flows just like a normal job. But then, I mean, you guys know that plus that with freelancing, sometimes the survival modes are a little bit more survival-y.
It's fine when the peaks of one match up with the troughs of the other, but when it's the other way around, you get this kind of like wave multiplication. I don't know the physics of it, but it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Get seasick.
So this is just a sampling of our days, and like everybody else, things go up and down.
Yeah.
Duncan, do you want to start in what's your late morning lunchy look like?
Yeah. So I mean, I'll start kind of like after my morning routine. So yeah, I usually sort of get started between 9:30, something like that. That's usually the point at which I'm like, I should probably start doing some actual work now. And so I'll go from wherever I am, which is usually the sofa or the big table, and come and sit down here at my computer, where I have like 3 screens and the setup and all of that. And it's nice. I really like my sort of studio environment. I put quite a lot of effort into making it a nice place to hang out. And I think that's so important when you work from home, because like it feels like you're just, I don't know, you buying a nice plant or something like that, but it just makes you feel so much better when you're there all the time. So yeah, I'll come and sit down here, and then I'll kind of figure out from my to-do list. I'll usually know already, but if I don't, then I'll look at my to-do list and I'm like, right, what is priority number 1 here? And also kind of what requires a bit of sit down concentration, because I would say that the first thing in the morning is usually my first like sit down concentrate time. I very rarely have meetings 9:30. That's pretty unusual.
Oh, really? Is that? I mean, I'm a little surprised just because your time zone is further back than like US people. So I would think your morning would probably get taken up with calls.
No.
Oh no,
so
it's
much.
opposite. It's
the other way
opposite.
around.
Sorry, I was opposite.
Yeah. And we'll talk about my call call times a bit later when we talk
Yeah,
about
that makes
evenings.
sense. Okay,
but-
so you don't have meetings because it is early for
yeah,
everybody else. Got it.
exactly. And I tend to work with like UK clients who will start at 10 o'clock my time, and then US clients who will start at lunchtime and things like that. So
Got it.
usually I actually get quite a peaceful morning, to be honest, and that's really nice. And I'm able to get a lot done. I think that's like one of my more productive times. And usually I will sit down and just kind of focus until I can't focus anymore. I usually sort of start getting a bit hungry about 11 o'clock, and then I will go and have a snack, and then maybe work another half hour or something like that, deal with some of the emails that have come in since then. And then I have a really early lunch, honestly. It's usually 11:30, 12, something like that is when I have lunch, which is kind of normal in Sweden, and it matches my body clock just
So
fine.
Swedish of you.
Yeah. And so then that'll be lunchtime. And when I can, I tend to do like a 2-hour lunch. Sometimes I can't because I've got too much to do, but it just takes quite a lot of time to give the dog a nice long walk, make some food, eat some food, find a little bit of time to relax. Like there just isn't time to do all of that in an hour. So I will tend to take a bit more time in the middle of the day, and then work a bit later on, usually in the evenings with calls and that. But yeah, we'll come to that.
Can you give us a little bit of like maybe some specifics on what kind of stuff you did, like maybe yesterday? What kind of things you're working on in that first session, maybe?
Yeah. So I have a long-term client that I'm currently doing 1 day a week for, and they're a climate charity. So like yesterday, for example, I had a fairly simple task. First up, it was just turning some bar charts into our house style. And they gave me the raw data. And so I just basically spent the morning in Figma, just like moving things around, putting auto layout on stuff, taking it off again, putting it on again in a slightly different way, taking it off again. It was, it was nice. And when I do design work, I will almost always have like some music on. I can't have music with lyrics on when I am writing, but if I'm doing design work, it's really nice to just, have something going on. And it kind of, I don't know, it makes it feel more like I'm having a nice time rather than just sort of sitting there and just going, kind of thing, So there was that. And kind of the kinds of decisions that you make when you're doing design work are also slightly different. You make something and then you sit back and you're like, is that good or is that terrible? And then you make another version and you're like, that one is more terrible. And then you make another version, and it's just kind of like this iterative process. And so it's quite nice to do that when I can focus, because I feel like if I'm constantly jumping in and out of meetings, I can't get the focus I need to do a good job on that. I just sort of like do little bitty things. And I don't necessarily always finish the task that I'm doing in that morning time, but I will get it to a point where I'm like happy with what I've done, and then I will come back to it later with some fresh eyes. That's usually what I try and do.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to organize the creative work. That works for me too. Just being able to have like a little burst and then a break, forced break, and then either by hunger or taking the dog out or your kids or whatever. And then being able to see it again with fresh eyes.
Yeah. And then when you come back to it, if you're happy with it, that's when I will send it off to, whoever is waiting for it.
Gabby, what about you? Late morning lunchy time?
Yeah, so from kind of like 9:30 to 12. So my morning is like completely hectic, to be honest. I think because of the E zone, it used to be easier. Now I have meetings often there because of European time zones, and check-ins with like internal teams. If I'm working with a client that has an internal team, or I have contractors that I'm working with, I have to check in with them usually in the morning so they can work later in the afternoon if they're in Europe or if are on the Eastern. So usually it's a bit madness in the morning. So I usually first I start with answering all my emails. Like that's the rule number one. I just like to go through everything and get rid of everything and organize. I usually check my task list too, like Duncan. So I use Notion, and I kind of have tasks for the day. So I look at like, what am I supposed to do? Sometimes I have blocked time in advance on where I'm supposed to work, but the morning, usually it's like meeting after meetings, or these weird things when you have a meeting and then an hour and then a meeting and then an hour. So I can't get any design. This is like management
That's hard.
zones. 30
That's the
minutes time
worst.
zone. I
Yeah.
hate
Yeah.
them. It's exhausting. You can't get anything done. So I do this thing where I do meetings and then I'll do like a small things, like send invoices and then meetings and then like do like a super quick design edits iteration that I need to do that's not too complicated. Or I'll do dog enrichment activity. Like I do stuff with the dog because my dog doesn't walk outside. He's too scared. So I have to like keep him entertained. So I do entertainment stuff with the dog for like 20 minutes and I go back to a meeting. It's exhausting. It's a dance. And that goes all the way pretty much to lunch. Usually.
Do you do any Gabby enrichment activities?
No, I don't. I mean, I'll water my plants because I'll see them in my and I'll be like, oh, I can see this guy's thirsty. So I'll have 20 minutes between the meeting and I'll be like, I'm gonna water my plant, or I'm just gonna lounge random laundry, or just random stuff. Like the morning.
I mean, that sounds like a Gabby enrichment activity.
Yeah, it's fine. Like I'll just order something online. Like I'll do all the really mini tasks that takes 5 minutes that add up because that's all I can do during that time. I cannot start any design work. Like it's not happening. So mornings are just hectic.
I think it's important to say as well that doing these kind of like little admin-y things in the day, like although it might seem like you are kind of like not working, your brain is constantly working on the stuff that you got out of your last meeting, and you're processing it and you're thinking like, what does this actually mean for what I need to do? Who do I need to contact about this? And then when you do sit down again, you can be like, right, just make a few notes on that and then move on to the next task.
Yeah. And in the back of my head, there's also like the design stuff that needs to happen today. So I'm like, I'm still thinking in a way. Sometimes I'm even like visualizing some design that I'm going to do later today. So it's not, so it's just kind of exhausting to change topics. So I also make a point. Notion has helped me organize my day where I really focus. I'm like, oh no, I have the rule of like, I need to finish this task first, especially small task. Like I'll start doing an invoice and I'm like, oh, I also need to do this, and like open a new window. I'm like, no, finish the invoice and then like finish answering that email.
One thing at a time.
Yeah. So I try to do one thing at a time. Otherwise, jumping is just, I think, neurologically very exhausting. But mornings are hard.
Yeah, and I think from hearing what you've heard so far, you can see that when you're a freelancer, you might have half the day go by and all you've done is check emails, have meetings, and send invoices and not do any design work. That's like very typical.
Today, I did design I got up early because I needed to do more design. So I did design from 6 to 9. And then since then, I've had 3 meetings and like just admin stuff.
Yeah, and that's why you have to charge more. We have episodes about that in articles. A lot of time was spent on invoicing and admin. Let's see. Okay, me for late morning. So I don't do data literacy trainings every day. We have a few a week, maybe. So once I get my kids to school or wherever they're going in the morning, then that's when I'm like, okay, I try not to have any meetings at that time because I feel like that hour and a half is just like the golden time. Like I've already done some things already, got oriented to my day. Now is the time where I can get like a good 90 minutes worth of something. Like yesterday specifically, once I dropped them off, I had to keep preparing for that presentation. And then it had a 2-hour corporate training. So it's 10:30 to 12:30. Ben Jones, the co-founder of Data Literacy, we were presenting together. So, we have this good flow about he presents maybe 5 or 10 minutes and I present 5 or 10 minutes and we go back and forth and it's working out really well. And he had one data story example. I had a data story example. And so we did that for about an hour and a half. And then I had to pop out to go pick up my kids from gymnastics camp. And so he held down the fort. And then I came back for the ending of the training. And then by then it was lunchtime. So my kids and I walked down and got pizza in our neighborhood. So that was fun. So I try to, when my kids are even at school, I try to go for a walk and lunch, kind of like Duncan, where it's like, got to get out like at least an hour, 2 hours, maybe, where I'm having lunch and like doing errands, chores, like life things.
Just give your brain a bit of a break.
Yeah,
it's so important.
Just take especially if you do spend the 90 minutes doing some sort of creative work, you're going to need a break and step away. Even if you feel like, oh, I need to keep pushing this, or I'm not done yet. Just actually taking that break when you come back, it feels fresh, and you're like, oh, okay, now I have a new direction I can go in. But just I found if I just try to take like a 20-minute quick break, scarf down some food, and then come back to it, it's a completely different experience than if I actually go for a walk and have a leisurely lunch. So I really try to do that when I can. But so, some days are busier than others, but I can't. But I have found that I get a lot of more productive time if I'm willing to invest a little bit of a break time in the middle of the day. How about you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, it's really like there's no typical day, right? Because my days are completely different and they're completely dependent now on meetings and what's happening. So I am now, unfortunately, on that 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off, whatever, hour here, hour there, manager's schedule most of the time. So like I have maybe depending on the week, 1 to 2 days a week where I will actually get like a big enough block of time that I can, sit down and do something creative. But a lot of times, I mean, you still have to force yourself. Even if you don't have that time, things have to get done. So if you don't have it, you just have to make it happen anyways.
Claim it. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
when you're in meetings and stuff, and what do manager meetings look like at Axios? Are you working on story development and is that
there's all kinds of things. I mean, some of them are like standing meetings, where it's like some of it might be that like planning, story development, just kind of talking about team stuff, like how are we managing the team, what changes do we want to make to our processes or our workflows and stuff.
I mean, we're kind of talking about meetings as like one thing, but I definitely I definitely find that different kinds of meetings have a hugely different cognitive effect on me. Like if it's a meeting with one other person where we're like brainstorming or workshopping something, that's like quite an intensely creative activity, and it's like it's really it can be quite exhausting. Whereas if it's just a sort of like it's the all staff meeting for that week and there's a few announcements. And,
we hate those.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of those, right? So that's like the other half is what I call just like listening meetings where maybe it's a whole all staff, maybe it's even just a team meeting, but for example, yesterday we had a learning hour. We have a weekly learning hour. And sometimes I might be super engaged in that because I have lots of questions or I'm presenting something or whatever, but a lot of times it's also just a listening meeting where yesterday, one of our illustrators was walking us through how they make zines. And I was like, this is interesting and I want to hear about it, but I don't have a lot to contribute. So I had that meeting during lunch and I just had my lunch while I was listening in on that meeting.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, almost like a YouTube video or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Does any of you have rules for meetings on which one do you choose to attend or not? Or am I the only one who does that?
I mean, generally, obviously you have to be at some meetings, right? You have to be there. But then those other meetings where it's like the weekly whatever meeting, I will usually go if I'm just sitting there and I, have nothing better to be doing. And sometimes I'll be working on my other screen while I'm doing the meeting. But yeah, I don't go if I have something else to do, I don't bother to go.
Yeah, if I'm not the focus of a meeting, then I will usually default to a focus of a meeting. It's not a meeting about Duncan. If I don't need to contribute too much in a meeting, I guess is what I'm saying, then I will quite often do kind of little design tasks. Maybe I've got some feedback on a graphic and I need to make some tweaks or something like that. I'll just sort of do that in the background while listening in and able to jump in. That feels like reasonable multitasking.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm asking because I've started implementing a thing where I just don't show up to this meeting when I'm supposed to just listen. I just don't. Like I say, I'm not coming because they do interrupt my day and I still have to do design. And so if I were to do all of them, I would have 5 meetings a day. So every couple hours, which is you can't do design if that happens. So I've started being more I won't be there if I don't need to, and please record it or transcript or give me notes. Cause I like more and more. I'm like, no, I'm not going. Like,
Tell me
I'm
my
not-
action items, you know?
Email me, record,
Mhm.
and I don't mind watching the recording because I can skip whatever is not interesting, and I'll do it on my own time. It's mainly like if I have to listen, I can listen on my own time,
Mm,
because otherwise, if I'm busy, I'm gonna be designing on site and not listening anyway.
Mm.
So it's so much because I have like 7 projects at the same time. Everybody has a team. I've started being like, no, like absolutely not.
And they're inviting you to the meeting as kind of like informational, like we're trying to decide on this thing for the project, and you're just sort of like adjacently related, and you might want to know.
Yeah. Like there's like there's big client who I work with for like the UI, for instance. They like to have weekly team meetups, but like honestly, there's not. Most of the time, they don't really need me to participate, or I don't feel like I'm bringing anything to the conversation.
Mm.
And it's not even always. Often, it's not about design really. It's about updates, and like I'm like I don't really need to be there. Or there's even internal meeting where you have a discovery phase where I work with Infographic right now. We're in a project where we have a discovery phase. They did user interviews. There's very interesting insights, but I don't need to be there when the client is there because they're doing like hours of workshop and. It's well done. They have somebody who does it really well, and I can just watch the recording, take my own notes. I'd rather do that than lose 2 hours and try to work doing.
That might be in your like good creative working time.
Yes, especially if it's like really interrupting my day. I just won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tend to agree with quite a lot of that. I think probably the only flip side that I would say is that with the work that I do for the climate charity, I've been working with them for quite a long time. I'm really friendly with them and everything. And, in a lot of ways, they're my colleagues. And it's quite nice to spend some slightly lower pressure time with my colleagues sometimes, and that's, I think, can be really positive. If it's a sort of,
I agree.
Not an all-staff meeting, but just like a small department, like the communications group, which I'm part of, for example, we get together, we joke a bit, we talk about what's coming up in the next few weeks. It's not all relevant to me, but some of it is. And sometimes I can be helpful with other stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think there's like the type of meeting that's like a social meeting almost, and those are important. I just think sometimes that's the one I would sacrifice sometimes because I just don't have the time for it. So
yeah, when you're really up against it time-wise.
Yeah.
Will, were you done? Did you get us through lunch?
Yeah, I mean, I do whatever is being done for the day. So that could mean any number of tasks. I mean, that's the other thing is a lot of my job is getting feedback. So, some days maybe I haven't really logged on until like 10:30 and then I have a meeting at noon. And so I don't have like a huge block. So I'm just going to spend that time like reviewing some stuff, giving edits, getting feedback. Sometimes I actually get to work on stuff. So, yesterday I'm actually in the middle of like a big project that's supposed to publish soon. So I was like, okay, I sat down and I'm going to like code. Like I had to actually make like an infographic. Okay, I'm in Illustrator, like, resizing this thing and making this graphic and then plugging it into the story and then doing edits on the copy, sending it to our copy editors, checking in with other folks who are working on aspects of it. So
for that one in particular, when you're in Illustrator, are you exporting it as like doing that AI to HTML thing, or were you just doing static?
Yeah, no, it's all AI to HTML. That's
okay.
So we make like you have to make like many different versions, so it works for like all the different screen sizes. So you start and make like one nice version and then usually get feedback on that before you resize it for everything. So like what I was doing yesterday, I had already made this graphic and then sent it out for feedback like the previous night, and then I in the morning review the feedback, incorporate that, and then do all the resizing. Otherwise you have to like remake the graphic 6 times or something. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. All right, Duncan, you are early afternoon and
oh dear,
maybe the end of your day. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah,
I mean,
have 2 minutes left. Yeah, that's
early afternoon is sleepy time.
Siesta.
No, I mean, I wish I could take a bit more of a siesta. Sometimes I do have like a little 20-minute power nap at lunch, and feel a bit better. Like if I haven't slept particularly well the night before, but most of the time I don't. And whatever happens, I'm usually a bit nappy in the early afternoon. And so that's often like admin time, or when I can, I try and schedule meetings for that time. Not especially like meetings that are more like stuff that is I'm not really the focus of. I will drop in on a meeting and just sort of be there and like I was saying, just tinker with something that I was working on that morning a little bit more. The other scenario that comes up sometimes, though, is that by lunchtime, I will have had a new task sprung on me that needs to happen like immediately. And so then sometimes that early afternoon chunk is me like putting out a fire. And if that is the case, then I will tend to focus a bit more on that and prioritize that. And then I would say that the kind of late afternoon is, if I can have it free, it tends to be, again, one of my more productive times. Like first thing in the morning and late afternoon tend to be my best times. And usually that I don't get to work in that time because that tends to be when meetings get scheduled for me, especially if I'm working with US clients. It will either be then or, early evening, 5, 6, occasionally 7 o'clock. I try not to let meetings go 7 onwards, but invariably it happens at least once a week for some reason. I mean, I'm recording this at 7 o'clock, so yeah, it's
this is fun though.
This is fun, I get to hang out with all of y'all, so that's nice. But yeah, I would say that late afternoons I usually kind of like have another round of breakthrough. I try really hard to finish the day at 5, and by finish the day I mean that is the point where I do not do any more stuff in Figma. I don't write more emails and things like that. I will sometimes have more calls, but I try not to do, but that's like communication stuff. I don't sit down and do work after 5. It's only, like sometimes little side projects or personal projects and stuff like that I will do a bit of in the evenings. But honestly, again, after meeting my partner from the station, walking the dog, having some food, a little bit of a sit down, there's maybe only about an hour or so before my screen curfew, which is like 9 o'clock usually. And then why are you all smirking?
You're just like a god to
That's what
us
I'm
that you can
saying.
do
He's so
that.
good at this stuff.
He's only the elfy one who has a screen curfew. I have this app, that like turn off the brightness and put my screen black and white, and literally every day I turn it back off. It goes
Like,
bright, and I'm like, no, I need my phone right now.
I know. I have the time limits. I'm always like, ignore.
I mean, this is what I try and achieve. Like realistically, it's more like 10 o'clock before I actually go to bed. But yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm usually asleep 10:30 most days, and that's, I've found that I do need a lot of sleep. I'm one of these people who needs 8 hours of sleep, otherwise I get increasingly non-functional. And I've learned that the hard way over the years. So it's just, it's something that I prioritize in my life, and that's why I do things like screen curfews and stuff. It's not because I want to be this paragon of health or whatever. It's because I have to, otherwise I don't get stuff done.
Gotta know yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I've learned. So yeah, that's my afternoon and evening setup.
What about you, Gabby?
Yeah, usually when I have lunch, I tried, if like today it's not gonna happen, but usually I have lunch quite late, so 1, 2. So I'll try to take an hour, because I just need it at that point, like full burnout. I'm like, I need to check. So I'll do things like literally watch TV for an hour, or more watering the plants. I'll do quite a bit of stretching because I have a lot of injuries from being on the computer. So I'm trying to do as much as I can stretches. And even during the day, I'll take a break, 5 minutes, just do stretches or do like reinforcement, like do reverse pull-ups to just try to work I
think like taking those little screen breaks is really, really important. My watch nags me to get up every hour if I haven't gotten up in that hour, and that's really helpful. Yeah.
Do you walk around in New York City at all, like in the middle of the day?
So that happens more in the afternoon. So sometimes it's 2 ways. Most of the time, even my lunch, if I have time, I'll actually take a huge lunch plus afternoon break. Pretty much, I'll do like 4 hours off sometimes, and then I'll do groceries, go walk, go on a run sometimes. But these days it's more like I'll have lunch for an hour and then I have a lot of design to get done by the end of the day. So I'll do a big session of, in my case, these days, for instance, it's a lot of meetings prep. So meetings prep is not admin work. It's like researching inspiration, making a good deck that sells the design. Like right now I'm working on a think tank that works in like climate ocean policy. So we were doing the discovery design kickoff, and so I had to think about, it's really intense, more intense, like work, like I have to be focused. So it's like connecting the values with like different design inspiration and really thinking about how do we present this the best way. And that has become a lot of my time preparing. It's not preparing the meeting, it's preparing the presentation for the meeting to make sure the phases of the design goes well and design gets approved. And that's like, I think these days it's like 50% of my time is spent on presentations, more than the design sometimes. So
why do you think that is? Is it because you kind of elevated your what you offer, or maybe like the way that you work? It's more of like,
yeah, I think I'm dealing with way larger clients that have way higher expectations and way bigger budget, and so it's gonna be more work. Like we're gonna make websites that are just absolutely massive with very complex user journeys. We're gonna make full brand for like organization like this one that's pretty big, that have really big impact. So it needs to be perfect, and to avoid to not get caught into rounds of iteration, it's easier to do prep work. And so to prep the client for things, testing the taste, giving them, showing their reaction to things, really connecting what they say to the design. And so it's a lot of prep work, and it has to be designed as in a presentation. So I do like 60 slides, 80 slides design things sometimes to like show the strategy behind the design and not just the design, and breaking the presentation of storytelling. Like I start from like, it's not just inspiration, here's the design, it's like here's the step-by-step process of where we landed there. And I don't know, it's proven really efficient. We get approved, I mean, my rate of approval is like 95%, which I think was designed in our head. So I'm very excited about that. There's very little iterations in general, but it does take
really
more.
good.
Yeah, it takes more work up front.
Yeah, it makes sense. If you're doing like a $500 infographic and you're presenting on the design for an hour, they're like, why didn't you just email this to me?
Yeah, exactly. Like back then I was like, here's the infographic, bye. And they'll do revision. But now it's like this big project, and it's like you prepare for 3 weeks of presentation. It's way bigger. There's like the CEOs involved, or like main people are going to be involved. You can't waste their time. You only have an hour to sell them on the design, and it needs to be a yes. So it's a different way of working. I quite like it. I actually really enjoy making presentation, but that takes a time. So for the day I was recording for this, it was 3 to 4 hours of prep for just that discovery kickoff. So landscape analysis, looking at the branding, revisiting their website, finding the inspiration, and then making the deck. And so I split it actually in 2 afternoons, even more, I think. So, and then we land into usually 5, 6, and that's when I take another break. So usually I like having dinner quietly. Like lunch I can kind of do fast, but not dinner. I'm very French. So like that's when usually I take a bigger break. Sometimes I like cooking, so I'll do cooking. I'll watch some stuff with my husband. We'll go out for a walk. When it wasn't this crazy wet, humid, hot weather in New York, I used to go on a run for an hour. And that can lead me to like 9 p.m. easily. And then I go back to work.
No screen limits for you.
No screen limits. Yeah, I guess I don't know if we're talking about evening, but like since the guy was like, I'm done at 5, and I'm like, oh no, that's my second. Like that's the second. Because the thing is, in the busy time, I have to do meeting preps. I end up with all those roles of like management, like but I also do a lot of design. All design sometimes. So I still have design. So I'll end up doing meeting prep, and then the only moment when I'm finally free to like do design and focus and not be disturbed is the evening. So I'll do it after 9 p.m. It's easier. So I'll do it 9, midnight, 2 a.m. sometimes.
I guess that's a bit like my morning time when I don't get disturbed. It's your nighttime that you don't get disturbed. And so that's the only time you have available, basically.
Yes. And before I didn't have so much meeting prep, so I could put it in the afternoon. But nowadays, most of the time I have to do the meeting prep first because it's more urgent for some reason. And also I like to have design and be more rested for design. Like I kind of like you after lunch, I'm like, even after an hour. So I'll do it like late. And it's easy. I don't get disturbed. I just put Netflix on while I'm designing and it's all good.
Yeah, go. How late do you think you typically go?
Usually I'm better, I'm more stable. This week it's been 2 a.m. every day. Usually it's more like 11 midnight, and then that's when I have less less meetings. Like I have a little more time in the afternoon. But if I have 3-4 meetings in the day plus other stuff to do, yeah, I'll just run it through until I also like to do it and like go unless I'm exhausted. In this case, I'll get up early because there's no point of designing if nothing's gonna happen. But if it's rolling, I'd rather do it now, get it done, and then the next day I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I'll finish my day by like my last task of the day usually is to check my emails again in case anything happened, and then I usually plan the next day. So I'll double check the task in Notion, postpone anything that has been postponed, block time in advance, do things like that just to have the next day planned. I don't like to rush in the morning. Like I like to have it set up in the morning. So I'll just set it up in advance in the evening, sometimes at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I'm like Duncan. I need a lot of sleep, so I try to get done.
I don't.
A bit early.
I mean, I don't. I'm okay with like 6, 5, but like not for month. But I'll be able to pull a 80
like a
hours week
stint.
easily. Yeah, I'll be able to pull a really big couple weeks for a minute.
Yeah, no, I can do that maybe like 2 days and then like just dying. I need 8 or 9 hours of sleep. But like for me after lunch, that I do kind of feel sleepy too. And also like I like to change if I can. My ideal is trying to change positions, like not being at my desk. And I really like to take my iPad, and if I need to sketch something, I use Procreate on my iPad. So I'll try to move locations, like sit on the couch or sit outside, or like take my kids to the pool and bring my iPad so I can sketch, just trying to get fit in life stuff with changing position and doing something I can do kind of on the go, like on the iPad. So either sketching like the composition of an infographic, or like right now I'm working with Ben for his book cover. And so I need to sketch, the composition of the book cover, or even actually doing the final designs in Procreate, which I do sometimes. So I try to spend those sleepy hours doing something that's a little bit more, this is a little easier on the mind, sitting at your desk, you're just like, oh, work. So those afternoon times are best for me if I'm sitting somewhere else and sketching or something. It's still like creative work, but it doesn't feel so pressed to me. And then typically around 5, I'll stop working and start, cleaning up the house and prepping for dinner. And I make dinner every night, or sometimes we go out or get takeout, but most of the nights I'm cooking, and then we all sit down together to eat. So that's like that's a non-negotiable for me. Like I like us all sitting down as a family to eat. And then sometimes I will work, cause my kids, when they're tired too, they just want to watch TV or play a video game. So usually that's maybe an extra hour that I can finish something up if I have to, even though I prefer not to. But sometimes I do snag that hour from like 7 to 8 and do one more thing. And then my kids go to bed at 8, and then I put them to sleep. And then usually I watch some TV with my husband, and then we go to bed at 9:30. So, and sometimes I do have to just work from like 8 to 10, 11. But man, I keep that as rare as possible because I really need my sleep. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty similar to you guys. I also do like a pretty leisurely lunch most of the time if I can afford to. Sometimes you can't, but I eat pretty late, so like 1, 2, 3, even like whenever it's gonna happen, and then I will go make some lunch, and usually, since it's summer, sit outside on the deck and like listen to a book, listen to a podcast, play with the dog while I eat lunch, and then come back, try to work a little bit more. A lot of times afternoons are meetings. A lot of times it's like smaller tasks or finishing something up in the morning, or basically just trying to cross off whatever I can. And then 4 o'clock is when everything starts winding down, because that's 5 o'clock East Coast. So
you're on Central Time, right?
Yeah, so I'm on Central Time. So like most of the Axios stuff, basically, like we're pretty good, at least on our team, about like people knowing that they can and should log off at 5. So, once that starts to happen, then my Slack stops pinging, and so then I kind of naturally wind down as well. And that's when the animals eat. So feed the animals, take the animals for a walk, take the dog for a walk. And again, probably call someone, talk to my parents yesterday. And then, I do dinner, watch TV, chores, that kind of stuff. And then later night is time if I have like freelance work to do. So right now I have a freelance project. So, last night it was like, okay, I think from like 8 until 11 or something, I just did some freelance work. And usually I'm like, it's pretty leisurely. I mean, by that point, I'm often like, unless I have to, I'm not doing super intense work. So like I'll watch TV while I work a lot of the time. So sit on the couch, watch TV, lay in bed, watch TV while I'm, on the laptop doing work.
For your freelance projects, are you mostly sticking to design type stuff? Are you doing some coding?
No,
Wait,
I don't.
Wait. You design on your laptop and your computer.
Yeah.
Do your wrist hurt? Like this is
I design like I know. I do it so like a lot like I do like a lot of I do like maybe the main design in like the big bulk of it, and then on the computer with the mouse. But then then it just drags on and you're just doing edits and adding little doodads and fixing and editing, and I do all that on the laptop. Like I've become pretty good at Figma with the trackpad actually.
My mind is blown.
Yeah, I do a lot of design on the laptop actually. Because if I have to I find it really, really hard now if it's not like Axios work to sit at the computer and do it. I have this like mental, now since I'm working full time, I have this really big like mental divide that like sitting at my laptop or sitting at my computer with my screens and my mouse is like 9 to 5 Axios work. And so
it's the Axios desk.
Yeah, it is the Axios desk.
You need another desk.
Right, I need another desk. So like, a lot of my freelance work is done on the laptop. And then go to bed around midnight or 1. So, yeah.
I have a question for you all. If you end up, and it happens sometimes, not as often as I think we'd like, that you end up with like, let's say, a 2-hour, 90-minute chunk in your day that anything else in, what do you do with it?
Let's see. Realistically, goof off on Slack.
Yeah, I think that's a totally valid thing to do.
Go to the grocery store. I mean, that's like the truth is like my days are, I made it sound very worky. They're punctuated by all kinds of things. I mean, I'm going to the doctor's appointment. I'm going to the grocery store. I'm like doing this errand. I'm doing laundry, cleaning up. Like it's all over the place. And when it's a time like right now where it's like crunch time because there's like all these projects are publishing and like tons of stuff has to be done, then it's less of that. But then there will also be times when it's a lot lighter. And yeah, some days I'll like be like, okay, it's 2:30 and I don't have any more meetings and I don't have anything else to do. I'm going to just go to the grocery store. So
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of similar in terms of if I have an errand to run, but I really like to, like if my kids are home, I'm like, oh, let's go do something. Let's walk to the library. Let's, walk to go get ice cream or something like that. I like to get out of the house and do something that's fun or like make something. I like to cook, like make some banana bread or something and listen to a podcast. Like that just feels like a dream, a dream afternoon to me. Like I could listen to a podcast or an audiobook and like, walk to the library or make some banana bread. I feel like that's my kind of like squeezing out my sponge, so to speak.
Yeah, I think I'm also like Ali. If I have really, so I'm pretty okay with staying on top of things that you get done in the house. In general, like I just do in between meetings and stuff like that. So if I have 90 minutes where really I don't have work or anything to do, I'll usually do like plant stuff, so I'll be reporting. It needs to be manual activity. Because sometimes I try to sit in front of the TV, and honestly, I just can't sit for long. I'll just start fidgeting with my phone and be on Instagram, and it just makes me angry to just spend time on social media. Like it's just a waste of time. So, unless I'm watching a very like interesting, stupid thing, sometimes I do, but it's pretty rare. So yeah, I'll usually be doing something manual. So it will be. Most of the time it's just doing plant stuff, to be honest. I'll be not just watering, but like repotting, moving things around, deciding that this guy needs to be put with another plant. I know, just
you have a beautifully curated setup.
Yeah, this is like just a section. And I have so little in New York that I get out of like what I need to do for my plants. Before I had more plants, so it was easier to lay. Or I cook sometimes. I do like even like meal prep just because it's manual. Like I just pretty much when I land there, I need my brain to shut down so I can, put a show or put a podcast on and then do something super manual where I don't have to think. The goal is to like shut down my thoughts if I have no time, like not have to stress about work. Otherwise, as soon as I'm sitting down with nothing to do, I think about work.
What else can I do? What else?
Yeah. And Duncan?
Yeah, I will shatter your healthy Duncan illusion by saying that quite a lot of times I will play video games.
That's not unhealthy, though. That's not unhealthy.
Is it?
What's a screen? I guess if that's what you mean.
It's a screen. Yeah, I mean, I definitely couldn't sit down and like watch TV. Like that would be too passive. I would like you said, I would just pick up my phone and I'd start looking at emails or Slack or whatever. But with a video game, it kind of like requires attention, and so I can kind of turn the brain off that is like thinking about work and turn on the I need to solve this video game problem like part of my brain, and I find that super relaxing. So that is part of it. And then it will be just kind of like trying to catch up with like articles that I've saved that I want to read. Maybe I'll write a little chunk of newsletter, just like little, I don't know, like marketing maintenance almost. I will like go and post something on LinkedIn. I'll write a little blog post or something like that. Just kind of like trying to punt things just a little bit forward, because otherwise that stuff never happens. So
I like that this is your relaxation 90 minutes. I'm like, what? Like this is work. I put time in my calendar for this. Like
so I mean the question was more like if you've got 90 minutes that isn't being used for something else. So it wasn't like 90 minutes that you're going to relax in. That wasn't my question. Sometimes I will take it for relaxation, but not always.
I guess to be fair, like to me, those things are work. So I schedule for it nowadays. So it's considered work. So it's in the day stuff. So I had the assumption of the 90 minutes are like nothing to do, like no work. So no marketing even.
Yeah. Some marketing can be fun, right? Like if it's, I don't know, an interview or something like that. But yeah, I think I typically don't think as marketing as fun stuff. So you're on your own there, Duncan.
I didn't say it was fun.
Yes, you did.
Maybe I did. I can't remember. But yeah, I don't know. I probably need to build marketing into my routine a bit more. I don't have any of it really in my routine.
Yeah.
And that's, something that I'd like
to. That is important as a freelancer, because the marketing is,
you
got to, people have to know you're out there. So that's kind of how
we should do an episode on that.
Marketing. That's a good idea.
Next one.
We'll each do blog posts on elevateDataviz.com. So if you're a member, sign up there, because we're going to each do a post kind of outlining our day.
Diary.
Yeah,
Andy
a little
Kirk
diary of kind of, just like Andy Kirk did, kind of hour by hour, so you can see what we're actually doing in our day, if you're interested in that. And thanks for joining us today. I hope this was interesting peek into what Dataviz designers do all day. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can join our what did you call it, Duncan? Our neat community. What did you say? Oh, it's really nice. Isn't it really nice?
I was going to say, I don't think I would use the word neat.
Neat.
It's like 110% American.
I would use that word.
You would say neat? Okay. Join our very neat and nice Elevate Dataviz community at elevatedataviz.com, and we will see you next month. Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.